We are unfortunately, as I've mentioned, getting to the point in the vaccination campaign here in the United States where supply is exceeding demand increasingly by more and more. Now, on the bonus show today, we are going to talk about the forthcoming approval of at least the Pfizer vaccine for ages 12 to 15. Pfizer already approved 16 plus. That should happen, could be within a week. I mean, imminently. And that will add a whole bunch of people to eligibility. And hopefully we will continue getting people vaccinated. But we are getting to a point where the anti-vaccine movement has been, I don't want to call it successful because it almost sounds like praise, but it has been effectively destructive in terms of getting enough people to say, I don't know that I need the vaccine at all, or I don't know that I need it right now. That Joe Biden has had to announce a completely new strategy yesterday. Joe Biden hoping for normalcy to some degree by the 4th of July holiday in the United States. That is certainly in question as vaccination continues to slow down. So there has been an overhaul to the pandemic and Joe Biden to the vaccination program, and Joe Biden announcing yesterday that this is a new phase. The goal is to at least partially vaccinate, meaning at least the first shot, for 70% of adults by July 4th. And this is, we talked, it wasn't a major criticism, but we acknowledged that when Joe Biden was about to take office and said, I want to vaccinate 100 million within 100 days, we said, that's not really ambitious because we're well on track for that. And then Joe Biden said, well, let's do 200 million in the first 100 days. And it ended up being about 220 million, I believe, shots in the first 100 days. This is actually ambitious now to say 70%, at least one shot by July 4th, because it's continuing to slow down. At first, remember, we had supply issues. We had distribution problems. That has all been resolved. And now the issue is just telling people, hey, if you don't want to wear masks, if you don't want to have capacity limits, if you don't want to have to think about, are my kids going to be in school or not, just go ahead and get yourselves vaccinated. And those most eager to get vaccinated have done it. As many of you know, I had my second shot in late February and was considered fully vaccinated by around, the first 10 days of March or something like that. I was extremely eager. Most people in my circles are actually I can't think of anyone I know that's not getting vaccinated personally. And now that has changed. And so we need to figure out something that can be done. Part of this is going to be making it easier for people to get vaccinated. Not only at the beginning, remember, you had to find an appointment and they were difficult to come by and they were often not conveniently located. A lot of those appointment-based vaccination clinics have gone to just show up, but still it's not convenient enough for some people. So now the goal of the Biden administration is for tens of thousands of pharmacies to not only start doing vaccinations if they're not, many CVS and Walgreens already are, but to just be set up for walk-in, just show up and get vaccinated. That is the degree to which supply is now exceeding demand in the United States. A very different problem than much of the world. Much of the world still has not just supply issues, much of the world has no supply. And we have a great situation in terms of supply in the United States, and tons of people are like, nah, I don't know. And we've seen anti-vax stuff and vaccine skeptical stuff from Tucker Carlson. We've seen it. We talked last week about Joe Rogan's comments about young people not needing to get vaccinated if they are healthy, and talking about, if you're working out, although there's no connection whatsoever between working out and how likely it is that you will get the virus and be able to spread it. So this is the new plan. Walk in anytime at tens of thousands of pharmacies. We will see if the pharmacies go with it. Joe Biden also announcing a new federal website as well as a phone number where you can just call or log on, put in your address, your location. It'll tell you what's the closest site. And unfortunately, we are at the point where if it's not really, really easy for people, a lot of people just won't do it. So let's hope for an increase to vaccination numbers. Those have declined. As of yesterday, more than 106 million people are what we would call fully vaccinated. And more than 56% of adults, about 148 million, have received at least one dose, which by itself provides a significant level of protection. but not as much as getting both doses. So let's hope for an increase. I think that, listen, I remain optimistic because as opportunities to do things, if you're vaccinated, continue to open, that is going to push more people to get vaccinated. As we continue seeing easier and easier availability, I think we're going to get there, and I think we will beat the variants, although without a doubt, at some point, a booster tweaked to the variants will be necessary. But it's a question of, well, we could have been looking really, really good in June versus maybe it's not going to be until July versus maybe it'll be August or maybe it will be September. So increasingly opportunities to get vaccinated, but the Trump administration handing off significant vaccine skeptical sentiment to the Biden administration. When you say for a year, this thing's not very serious, that makes a lot of people believe they don't really need a vaccine. And that's exactly what we're dealing with now. Tell me if you are seeing anti-vax sentiment in your community. Find me on Twitter at Pakman. We'll take a quick break and be right back. One of our sponsors today is Strategic Voters, a new podcast that features election experts, political campaign strategists, and everyday Americans who sit down and discuss the biggest issues in the U.S. political landscape. On the activism side, Strategic Voters as an organization aims to encourage people to vote with the benefit of the country as a whole in mind, instead of just voting one party down the ballot. If you want to hear some really different and interesting opinions and approaches to voting and viewing policies, give the Strategic Voters podcast a listen. The latest 2 episodes feature Rachel Cobb and Lana Atkinson as guests. I've been listening to it myself. I've been really enjoying it. It's very grassroots and independent, which I love. Find the Strategic Voters podcast on all major podcast platforms and make sure to follow them on Twitter at Strategic Voters.